Okay, so welcome to tonight's webinar, everybody. As you can see from that first slide, tonight we're talking about team building for beginners. Thank you, John. This is one of a series of 8 webinars that I run. I try and do one every week, at this time on a Wednesday evening. I often, well, not often, but occasionally have to miss one if I'm going to an opportunity meeting or if I'm away for some reason. So it might take 9 or 10 weeks to do the whole series of 8, but they're all recorded. So if you find that, and with the one we're going to cover tonight is all about team building, if you wanted, if you had a new team member who just wanted to see the getting started video, for example, then I'll show you at the end where all of the recordings are held, and you can point them at those recordings, so you don't have to wait until that one comes round again. You can kind of watch it sooner if that's good for you. So, team building for beginners. So tonight what we're going to talk about is whether or not you have to build a team, and if you're not sure about it, I'm hopefully going to explain why I think you should start to build a team, and then I'll explain a bit about what tools you need, and a bit about getting started. Doing team building can be a bit scary at first if you've never done it before, so there's a couple of easy ways you can get started on it. I'm then going to talk about rods in the pond, and this is something that you'll hear a lot in Kleeneze training, and I'll explain what people mean when they start talking about that. And then when you get a lead, and a lead is basically someone who's replied to an advert and they might be interested in earning a bit of extra money. So what do you do when that happens? What information should you send your leads or your prospects, and then making sure that you follow up, because it's very easy to lose people and just assume that they will contact you if they're interested. But I guarantee you will build a much bigger, stronger team if you follow up rather than just wait for them to get in touch with you. So, quick question, what does everybody think? Do you have to build a team to be a Kleeneze distributor, or to be a successful Kleeneze distributor? No? Dave says no, you don't have to. Pete agrees? Lots of people saying no, you don't have to. And that's right. In fact, most distributors don't team build. I would say probably 90% of distributors join Kleeneze not because they want to team build, but because they're just looking to earn a bit of extra money. And the quickest and easiest way to do that is to start off doing the catalogue, the retail side, the catalogue catalog delivery, and the Facebook selling. So most distributors don't team build. A lot of people join, start doing the retail, and kind of happy with that. But it's really, really important to know that you can, because quite often what will happen is you might become an accidental team builder. And by that, what I mean is you could have a customer that says, "Oh, Chris, my son is looking for work, and you've been doing catalogs around here for a while. Are you looking for distributors in the area?" And of course, if that happens, you would say yes. And the last thing you'd want to do is say, "Oh no, I don't really want any team members, thank you," because if they don't join your team, then they'll just join Kleeneze and somebody else's team, and then you've got competition rather than team in your area. Or friends or family might see what you're doing, and especially if you're working hard and being successful at it, they might want to do what you're doing as well. So if they come to you and say, are you looking for any more people, any more distributors? Then again, even if you haven't been actively looking for people, people might see the change in your lifestyle and won't be interested in joining. So it's important to know that you can, because otherwise you might miss out. So why should you build a team, even if you're not sure of that? Well, there's a number of reasons. So one is you can earn a much bigger income. There are people in Kleeneze, some of the really top retailers, who are earning kind of £3,000 a month plus, just doing their own catalogues and some Facebook selling as well. But there are people earning 10, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds a month by building a team. So you can build a much bigger income if you do build a team. And the other big advantage is if you're a big retailer, and by that I mean, if you're treating it seriously and you're doing it like a full-time job, then obviously you can earn a lot of money from your catalogues. But if you're ever ill, or you decide to take some holiday, or if you twist an ankle, or for whatever reason you're looking after granny or anything like that, you can't get your own catalogues out, then you're not earning any money because you're not generating your own retail. Basically your income is based entirely on your own ability to work hard. However, if you've got a team and a proportion of your income is based on the support and the coaching that you've given to your team, then even if you're ill and you can't get out yourself, then you'll still be earning your bonuses from the work that your team are doing. So, if you think that it is worth building a team, how do you get started? What tools do you need to make a start on team building? Well, a great thing to start off with is the easy reach messages that Gavin sends down all the time, different messages from distributors explaining hints and tips and stories about how they started and how it's transformed their lives. And these messages are really, really useful because if you're talking to somebody and their situation is a bit different to yours, so I joined Kleeneze basically for kind of, I was worried a bit about my pension, so I was looking for some, financial security going forward in the future. But if I'm speaking to say a single mum who's got a couple of kids, I don't really have a personal experience of her challenges that she's going through. But if I know stories of Abigail Colkley, or there was a lady in our team, Louise, who had 9-month-old twins, and her husband got to Gold Distributor earning £2,000 a month plus. I can relate those stories to her situation, and if she's sort of thinking, oh, I'm not sure I can do it, and I can say, well, actually, I know at least 2 examples of people who have done really, really well in your situation, then it's much more likely that they're going to join you in your team because they know the story. So understanding different stories of different people, whether it's mums or pensioners or everything in between, is really useful tool to get started. What else do you need? Well, you need some kind of diary, and that can be either a physical diary like a notebook, or personally I use my computer. I've got a calendar on my computer that I use just for keeping track of if you're supposed to be calling somebody at a certain date, a certain time, or they've said, oh, I'm busy for a couple of days, but could you call me on Friday? I'd be home from work about 5:30. You don't want to have to rely on your memory to remember to call somebody at 5:30. So having everything down in like a notebook or on some kind of diary system is really important. And the same for your lead book. And what I mean by that is basically a way of keeping track of the different people who've replied to your adverts or that you're speaking to. So a lead or a prospect is somebody who's looking for a way to earn some extra money, and you need to keep track of them. So if you're generating 1 a week and you're speaking to 1 person, you can kind of probably remember their details and write it on a scrap of paper or something. But if you're generating 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 a week, it's impossible to remember all those things. So you need a really good system for keeping people's details. So you will need, again, either a notebook or some kind of computer system to keep track of all your leads. You really do need a telephone. I know these days people are sending texts and Facebook messages and all sorts of things, but you really do need a telephone to be able to speak to people, and you need some information to send them. And I know some people do appointments, but the system that we learned and that I teach with my team is sending information packs to people and then going through it with them on the phone. So speak to your upline to get the specifics of how they do it, and so you can kind of copy what they do, but you'll definitely need some information to be able to send them or show them. So how can you get started? And what I'm going to do is just give you a little idea of a way to get started quickly and for free, and this is often a really successful way to get started. And that is your warm list. So start off, just make a list of 10 people that you know. If I said to you, oh, can you write down a list of everybody that you know, it would take you forever and you'd never know when to stop. But if you just start off making a list of 10, and this can just be friends, family, people that you feel comfortable talking to. And give them a quick call using a third party approach. And what I mean by that is you ring them up and you say something along the lines of, "Oh, hi Jim, how are you? How's the family? Oh, great to speak to you. I'm sorry I haven't been in touch for a while. The reason for my call is I've just started this new business that I'm really interested in. And I wondered if you could do me a favour. If I send you some information about how it all works, would you take a look at it? And if you know anybody who might be interested, would you let me know?" So you're not saying to them, "Hi Jim, you're always skint. You could do with a bit of extra money. Have a look at this and then let me know when you want to join up." Because all you're going to do is kind of wind them up. What you're saying is, "Would you do me a favour? You're a friend, you're a family member. If you can think of somebody, let me know." And it's really easy for them to say yes. But the point is then that they may or may not know anybody at the moment, but they may know somebody in future, and you never know when their circumstances might change. And especially if they see you being successful and your lifestyle changing, then they're going to be interested in what you're doing. So make sure they know that you're doing Kleeneze, because the last thing you want to happen is for them to have some situation that means they're looking to earn a bit of extra money. They reply to some advert in a newspaper or on a shop front or something like that, and it turns out they joined Kleeneze in somebody else's team just because you hadn't told them that you're interested in it. So that's a disaster if that happens. So you really just make sure people know, even if it's not right for them at the moment, you never know when it will be. And keep adding people to your list. So I've said make a list of 10 people. Every day, right? Add a few more to your list and contact them. There's a great memory jogger that you can get in, I know in the bids getting started book, or if you just go online and do a search on Kleeneze memory jog or something like that, there's great like lists of things to help you think about the different people that you might know, your kind of friends, the parents of your children's school friends and things like that. It's a great way of doing that. And also make sure you follow up. So once you've sent them the information, give them a call a couple of days later just to remind them, just to say, "Did you think of anybody?" And they may not, or they may say, "Actually, you know what, this is just perfect timing because I've just had my hours cut at work. I could really do with a bit extra at the moment." And as I've said there, what you're doing is not necessarily expecting people to join your team immediately, but you're letting them know that you have a way to earn some extra money. And that's really important because you never know when their circumstances are going to change. Okay, so I'm now going to expand on that a little bit and talk about fish pond activity. We call it fish pond activity because if you imagine that all of the people out there in the UK and Ireland are fish in a pond, 38 million of them, quite a big pond, and some of them will be interested in earning some extra money, and some of them will join Kleeneze, and your job is to find those people, those fish. A quick question for those of you who are anglers, fishermen, or if you've ever seen anyone. If you go to the end of a pier, or if you go by a river or whatever, how many fishing rods do you see people use? Yep, Sean says 3. Andrew, as many as they want. Yeah. I think the point I'm making there is you'll often find, Katrina, Pete, good answers there. You'll usually see they use more than one. So the reason for that, from a fisherman point of view, is if you've got a river or a piece of sea or whatever with several different kinds of fish that you're looking for, they might take different baits. Some of them will be swimming near the surface, some will be near the bed of the lake or whatever. So you'll have different rods aiming at different kinds of fish. And it's the same with us. If you're only doing newspaper adverts, for example, then there'll be some people that will never ever reply to a newspaper advert. But if they got a leaflet through their letterbox, they'd be thinking, "Oh, there must be looking for somebody in our area," so they'd reply to that. Other people would only ever reply to something because they see it on the internet. They don't read their newspapers. If the leaflet comes through their door, they just think it's junk mail and they throw it away. But if they're on Facebook and a friend of a friend recommends something, then they might reply to that. So there's all different ways of doing it, and the more you use the wider your kind of catch will be. So I recommend that you start off with a website. Speak to your upline for the details on this. I'm not going to go through it in a lot of detail, but having your own website so that people can reply to your adverts is really, really important, because if all that you do is have a telephone number, then a lot of people would be nervous about just calling you up from a leaflet or a card or something. However, they'd be quite happy to go to a website, enter some details and just get some information. So getting a website with a domain name, having some software behind it. I've called it Contact Manager, but when you start off, you'll get everybody gets a free website with head office, which you can use. It's the I want to change my lifestyle.co.uk. I'll expand on that in a moment. So there's some bits of software that you'll find really, really useful, and there are a number of companies out there that do kind of websites and contact managers. I've mentioned one there, Big Advertising, because I've used that in the past and I think they're quite a good company. But again, speak to your sponsor or your upline who is actively team building, because they will be able to support you and they would suggest whatever they're using, and it makes sense to do the same so they can kind of support you with any kind of technical help you need. So once you've got that set up and you can start advertising, where are the different places that you can advertise? Well, I mentioned your warm list. I'm going to go very briefly through a list here, but you can have a little look at this yourself later on in the recording if you want to. So shop adverts are another good way to do it, and leafleting as well. Now what I find with all of these different rods, different ways of generating leads, there's very few that are actually free, apart from the warm list, which I've mentioned, and some 3-foot ruling, which I'll expand on in a moment. If you've got leaflets, for example, then they're relatively cheap. You just have to buy the leaflets, so it doesn't cost you a lot of money, but it does take you time to put them out. So it takes, if you like, the cost is in your time rather than money. And there are other ways of getting adverts. So, for example, newspaper adverts, and there are internet companies, which I've mentioned there, specialist companies such as Advert Anywhere and Private Eye, where it takes you next to no time to do it. You can just register. It might take you 5 minutes, get a newspaper advert, take you 5 minutes to email it to the relevant department, but you'll have to pay for it. So depending on your situation, if you've got time but not a lot of money, then you'll be using certain of the rods. If you've got the money but you've stopped for time, then you might want to use different ones. But don't just rely on one rod. As I said, you're much better off having 2 or 3 that you use regularly, and the more the merrier, basically. So what other things can you do there? Wearing a badge. I mentioned about 3-foot ruling. You can see it here again. If you wear a badge that just says something like, if you hate your job, ask me about mine, or earn extra money now, ask me how, something like that. And especially a great thing to do is to wear it upside down, because then if you're stood in a queue and so, you're just kind of looking around, then the person either side of you might start looking at your badge, and you can kind of just see them turn their head slightly while they're trying to read it. And that's a great kind of icebreaker to just start chatting to them about the weather, or what the latest coffee craze is or whatever. And then if they're interested, just as you're going away, the best thing to do is, rather than get involved in a detailed conversation while you're in the queue, you could just say to them, oh, I just noticed you were looking at my badge. I don't know if you know anyone, I'm just expanding my business in the area, and we're looking for people that might be interested in earning a bit of extra money. And they might sort of say, oh yeah, I might be interested, or oh, I might know someone. So either give them a card or just say, oh, do you have email? I can send you some information to your email, or if you've got a telephone number, I'll call you and then I can send you some details then. So just kind of whatever you can do. It's better if you can get some information there and then. But when you're first starting off, often it's a bit easier and kind of easier to get started just by giving them a card or a leaflet. And then as you get more and more used to doing that, that becomes easier, and you get into more conversations, and then you sort of can start asking people for their contact details. So that's a great way to do it, and it's practically free, as I say, because you just kind of stood in the queue anyway, waiting to pay for whatever it is you're queuing for. So a number of different areas there. Car signs are great. You pay for them once, stick them on the car, and then it takes you no time. It's you're a free advert everywhere you drive at that point. Ad pools are usually run by your upline, so you might have an SED or an executive upline who runs a pool, and lots of their team can then sort of pool their money together and buy a big advert and then share the results of it. And your customers, I mentioned earlier an example there, customers are often great because they know your business, they know the products, they like the products, otherwise they wouldn't be ordering from you. So you'll often find customers would be interested in becoming distributors as well. And as I've said there, the more rods you use, the more fish you will catch. And this is just a summary, so please feel free to ask me a bit more about any of these at the end or afterwards, or speak to your sponsor. As I say, they'll be familiar with most of these. So, what do you do? What's the process? So, very simply, someone replies to one of your adverts, so they've seen your car advert or one of your cards or a leaflet or whatever, and they'll fill in their details usually on your website. So give them a quick call. I normally just call, very kind of quick conversation, just sort of say, oh, hi, you replied to our advert. I then send them some information, and as soon as possible, the call and the information, you need to get to them quickly, especially if it's something like a newspaper advert they've replied to, because chances are they'll have replied to 3 or 4 others. So if you take a couple of days before you even get back to them, by then they may have looked at some other opportunity and be ready to start. Then do a follow-up call a couple of days after they've got the information, or the next day, depending on whether you've emailed it to them or put it in the post. And then, obviously, if they do decide to get started, then sign them up or add them to your autoresponder if not. And by that I mean, just because somebody says no, they're not interested, doesn't mean they're never interested. It might just be that now is not the right time for them. And an autoresponder, I'll expand on that in a moment, but it's basically a bit of software that allows you to keep in touch with lots of prospects at the same time. So, just expanding on that a little bit. So someone replies to one of your adverts. I would say try to make sure you call them within 24 hours. And at the beginning, don't panic too much over exactly what you say. You'll make lots of mistakes. I did. I was dreadful when I first started off. Everyone makes lots of mistakes. But it's just a brief conversation. Just saying, oh, hi, it's Chris. You just replied to our advert about, depending on what you've got on the card, catalogue deliverers or working from home or whatever. I just wanted to send a little bit of information to you, if that's okay. And hopefully they'll say, oh yeah, that's fine. And you might want to ask a little bit about, could you tell me a bit about your situation? Were you looking for part-time work or full-time work? And then they might tell you a bit about their situation. Oh yeah, I'm a mom. I've got, kids are at school, but I've got 4 or 5 hours during the day when I'd like to be able to do some work. And it just gives you a chance to build a bit of rapport with them. But you're not having long conversations where you're explaining all about the nitty-gritty and the details of how it works, because Kleeneze have produced lots of professional kind of information and videos that expand on all of that, and that makes a much better job of it than you can yourself. So, maybe a summary of the opportunity if they're interested, but 9 times out of 10 I just say, is it okay if I send you some information? And they say, oh yes, that's fine, thank you. And so I get their email address or their postal address if they want something in the post. I've got a couple of scripts that I use. I'm happy to send people copies of those, but as I've said, they're very, very short, so don't expect anything amazing. And be excited, be enthusiastic about it. Not over the top, but really, people join you. They don't join Kleeneze. What I mean by that is, if you're kind of, oh hi, you replied to our advert a couple of days ago, I don't suppose you're interested in joining. We're a catalogue delivery company. You might have heard of us. We're called Kleeneze. Then people are going to think, oh my god, this guy's not very excited about what he's doing. I think I'll give it a miss. But if you're sort of saying, oh hi, thanks so much for replying to our advert. Yep, we've got, we're looking for people in all sorts of different areas. We've got, we're looking for catalogue deliverers. We're also looking for people selling online, and team leaders. We're looking for team leaders as well. And so you're enthusiastic about it. Then people are more likely to say, oh, sounds quite keen. Okay, let's have a look, see what he's got to offer. And then send them the information as soon as possible. So by email if you possibly can, just because it'll get to them straight away. But not everybody has email, or they rarely log on or they don't have a computer, in which case you might have to send them some information in the post as well. And if they do have any questions, it's okay to clarify them, but don't try and sell it over the phone. You're not kind of trying to go through it all in detail and then saying, so what do you think? Do you want to sign up? Because you'll just be putting people under pressure. And as I said, it's much better for them to read through it at their own pace than for you to kind of try to sell it to them at your pace. So I mentioned about sending information to them. What information do you send? Well, there's a number of different sources, so I would say firstly speak to your sponsor to see what they use, but if you're sending information in the post, there's some great opportunity brochures and DVDs that explain how it all works, and if they're online, there's some fantastic videos on YouTube. If you go to the Kleeneze HQ YouTube channel, then all of the It Works videos I think it's about 8 or 9 different examples of mums and people who've been made redundant and people that were holding down 2 jobs but still struggling to pay the bills, and lots of different examples. Abby Allgood, the student, is in there as well. So have a look at that, and then you can find something that will work to send it to your prospects. As I said, get their email address if possible, because even if it's not right for them now, by building a list of prospects and their email addresses, you can use software. Big Advertising was one I used earlier. I've used a one called iContact as well, which is just a great way of sending out, just kind of once or twice a week. I normally send out little success stories, kind of little links to things going on, and you never know when somebody in your list of thousands and thousands of prospects has a change of circumstances, and you want to be in their mind when they think, oh crikey, I need to earn a bit of extra money. You want them to be thinking, now where's that latest Kleeneze email that I got from that guy? Keeps sending me this stuff. Let me have a look at that now, because that's what you want. You want to be in their mind. Other stuff you can send them, there's a leaflet from head office about how to get started. There's the Team Talk company magazine, which is a great magazine, really professional, lots of great examples of stories and checks and success. So that's a really kind of professional, well-produced magazine. So that's a great thing to send to people. And it's A4 and not heavy, but reasonably heavy. So I wouldn't say send that out to every single prospect that you've got, otherwise you'd be paying a lot in postage. But somebody who's kind of interested and kind of just wants a bit of time to think about it, while they're thinking, send them a copy of the magazine, because that might be what sways them. And also, I would say send copies of checks with people's testimonials. And there's, I would say, 2 or 3 different ones. Send somebody an example of a small check, relatively small check, for say someone who's earning £200 odd in a period. So that's £50 a week. And to be honest, a lot of people, that's exactly what they're looking for. But also send them an example of somebody who's earning £1,000 plus, because that can replace full-time income if someone's lost their job. And an example of a really big income, £5,000 a month plus, just to show them what a fantastic lifestyle they can have if they were happy to work for it. There's lots of press articles as well that you can send to people, just showing the fact that Kleeneze has been in local newspapers or national newspapers as well, because that gives it that extra kind of third-party credibility. So I mentioned earlier about having a lead book. I also call it like a prospect tracker, and it's basically you need to keep track of the different people. Oh, thank you, John. Yes, you can send copies of Team Talk by email now, so you don't have to wait until you've got the physical magazine. So yes, for every prospect, you need to keep track of some details, their name, contact details, and so on, and their current status. And what I mean by that is, have you sent them information yet? Are you waiting to get hold of them? Have they looked at the information but they want to discuss it with a partner? Wherever they are in the process, it's useful to know, because you need to remind yourself when you're going to call them back in a day or two. You can't rely on your memory to remind you of everything that you've discussed with them. So you need somewhere where you can make a note of what you've learned, where they are, so that when you ring them up again, you can kind of carry on the conversation from where you left off. And it's kind of useful to have some personal information in there as well. So if they're talking about they're a mom and they've got a couple of young children, then you might give them different examples and talk to them about other people in the business than if they're kind of retired and they're just looking to boost their pension. So having that information makes a big difference if you're keeping track of all of that. And events are a great thing. If you've got somebody local and they're thinking about it, then always invite them to your local opportunity meeting when you go along to that. Not everybody might want to commit to doing that, but if somebody does, that's a great way just to kind of immediately show them how big Kleeneze is. They'll see an opportunity presentation, maybe a testimonial, an example of the training. You can introduce them to other people in the business, and there's a great buzz around the opportunity meeting. So inviting them to a local event will make a big difference for new starters. There's also national events or regional events like the Millionaires Colleges and the big company events, and they're all welcome guests as well. So you can invite somebody if they're local to that. If you do have a guest coming along, just warn them a bit about their dress code. Normally, most people will be happy, wearing smart, casual clothes. If you've got somebody in there, a painter decorator, for example, if they come along, they might feel a bit out of place in their kind of painting overalls. So you might just want to let them know about the dress code. But for most people, as long as they're reasonably kind of comfortable, that'll be fine. But make sure you get there nice and early so that you're there when they arrive, and then introduce them to other people. Make sure they feel really welcome and kind of part of the group. So I mentioned earlier about following up. It's all very well getting these leads, sending them some information. If you start to think that if people are they've got the information, they'll have a look through it, and when they're ready they'll let me know, then you're going to miss out on a huge number of new team members, because a lot of people, they've got busy lives. They might be sort of thinking, oh, I'll be quite interested in this, I'll give them a call tomorrow, and then the next day and the next day, and they just forget to ring you back. Whereas if you follow them up, if you ring them back and say, what did you think about it, you'll often get people say, oh yeah, thanks, I did look at that, yeah, I am interested. Is it possible for us to meet up? If they're local, then and that's great. If you don't do that follow up, you'll miss out on that. I reckon you'll get 10 times more team members if you follow up than if you just wait for people to contact you. So the way I do it is, after you've sent them the information, the next day or a day later, depending on if you've emailed it or sent it in the post, call them back and just say, what did you think? And let them talk. Don't just kind of talk and talk and talk about, oh, it's a fantastic business, you can do this and you can do that and you can do this and you can do that. You need to let them let you know what they thought about it. And they might have a few queries or a few questions, and that's great, because then you can answer their questions based on what they think, not what you think they might want to know about. If they've got any concerns, then always agree with them. Don't disagree. If they sort of say, oh, well, it wouldn't work around here because I think there's somebody else who already does it, don't say, oh, no, you're wrong about that, because that's just going to kind of get them feeling antagonistic. Agree with them and say, oh, yeah, you know what, I know exactly how you feel. When I first started, I felt exactly the same, because I was worried. I knew there was somebody who'd been delivering catalogues to us just a few days earlier. But what I found was, and then you can explain your situation. And even if it's not your personal situation, if you've got a story like, what she found was that when she was going around with the buggy with the children in, that was a great kind of icebreaker with all of her customers. So whatever it might be, don't disagree with them. Always agree with them. Say you know how they feel, but then you can kind of often turn that around by the feel, felt, found approach. But finally, and this is really, really important, don't persuade them to join. And by that I mean, don't just, if you're sort of feeling you're having to say, oh yeah, don't worry, you won't have any problems, and it never rains, and everybody gives you your catalogues back, and you always earn loads of money, you're just lining them up to kind of fail the first time they have a problem. Just give them the information, help them to clarify any questions that they've got, but let them decide for themselves whether they want to join. Because if they've decided, they're much more likely to give it a good go and overcome any obstacles that they come across than if you persuaded them to join with promises that you can't fulfill for them. So hopefully Once you've been through this process, you're ready to sponsor a distributor. And it's fairly simple. Your upline can help you with this now. Always do it with them though. I've had sort of people say, "Oh yeah, just send me the link and I'll fill it all in." And it's much easier now than it was a year or so ago. But either doing it with them face to face or on the phone will just speed it up and make sure that if they do have any hiccups or queries as they're going through, you can sort them out for them. Typically, it will take you about 10 minutes plus a little bit longer, maybe if they've got questions. But if you just send them the link and say, just fill it all in, I'm sure you won't have any problems. Let me know if you're worried about anything. Then you will lose a lot of distributors because they'll get to a point where they think, I'm not sure about this now. And there's lots of small print here, and perhaps I've changed my mind. Whereas if you're guiding them through it, then you can answer those questions rather than them start to worry about things in their own mind. And it's a very simple process. You just send them an email through the registration link on kleeneze.co.uk once you've taken some details from them. And a good thing that I would do is in the DSA, and you can see there where it is, there's an online registration guide, which is basically just screenshots of all of the screens that they will see. So I've just got those printed off, and I just go through them kind of one at a time, and as they're pressing on the button for the next step or confirm, then I can tell them what to expect on the next page. So it just flows very easily. So it's useful to have those screenshots handy. And it just allows you to anticipate any questions that they might have. And then when they've finished, just welcome them to the team. And if you're not quite sure yet exactly what their situation is, make sure you understand what they want from Kleeneze. If not now, in a very early phone call, the next day once they've all kind of completed their registration. Because if you understand whether somebody's just looking for an extra £50 a week, or they're looking to replace a full-time income, or they're wanting serious money, that really helps you to focus on what areas of training you start giving to them as soon as possible. Okay, so where are we now? It's 20 to 9. Sorry, that went on a little bit longer than normal, but hopefully that all kind of made sense. And what we went through is the fact that you don't have to build a team to be successful in Kleeneze, but there are a lot of benefits to doing so. I explained a bit about the tools that you needed. Typically, it's just computer, diary, sort of book, phone, that kind of thing. So it's not overly complicated. A great way to get started, I would say, is to practice on your warm list because it's so easy to do. It costs you nothing. But then there are all sorts of other rods you can use, and hopefully you kind of got the impression that if you can use more than one, it's a big advantage, and you will build your business more quickly. And then what to do when you get a lead, what information to send them, and how to follow that up. Okay, so that was number 4, team building for dummies. I call it team building for beginners, I think I called it. Next week I'm covering how to support your new team members. So once you've got a new team member in your team, what do you do with them then? Because hopefully you've had fantastic support from your sponsor and your upline, and you want to do the same for your new team members. I mentioned at the beginning that I was recording all of this, so if you bear with me a moment, I'm just going to turn the recording